So do you have a cake recipe to fall back on? You know, one that everyone says, hey, be sure to bring that cake? Well, if you don't, you will after this video. It's time to cook. So today we're making apple cake, and this cake is absolutely delicious. We made it, I think, twice for Thanksgiving. Once on Thanksgiving Day, and we ate it all, and my son wanted another one, so we made it again. So I think it's pretty easy. It doesn't have a lot of ingredients. It's not complicated at all. So just follow me, and I think this might be a favorite of yours as well. So let's take a look at what we have. So we have our flour. I would think if you were gluten-free, you probably can do an equal swap out for a gluten-free flour mix. We're just going to use all-purpose unbleached flour. We're going to be using some Honeycrisp apples, which are my favorite, and we're going to add to that some brown sugar, cinnamon, just a little bit of salt. We're going to use applesauce and a little bit of olive oil to give this some moisture. And then we actually have a crumb on top of it, which is really, really pretty easy. So I'm going to just walk you through it. We're going to get it in the oven. It's going to smell fabulous, and you're going to see what it looks like. All right, so let's start by sifting our dry ingredients. So I have this little sifter, and to be honest, y'all, sometimes I don't have time to be playing around with the sifter, so I don't always do that. But I do want to do it this time because we did that for Thanksgiving. So we're just gonna put in here 2.5 cups of flour. Now I have tweaked this recipe, so as usual, I have my little recipes with me, and I would encourage you to do the same. So we're gonna put our flour in here. That's 1 cup. The best way to know exactly how much flour you have is to use a scale, but I'm not doing that today. All right, 2 cups of flour, and I'm gonna use my little half here. All right, so to this, we're also going to add 1.5 teaspoons of baking soda. Okay, baking soda is in the refrigerator. Powder in the cabinet, right? So we have some baking soda that's going to go in here. I'm also going to be putting in some cinnamon. I have 1 teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 teaspoon of salt. You can use either table salt, or I just happen to be using pink Himalayan salt. And then I also have 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Okay, so far it's pretty easy, right? I'm just going to crumble that up, and then I'm going to sift it all together. And need a little help getting through here. Make it a little more light and airy. And to be honest, if you don't feel like doing all this, you can still make the cake without that, but the texture will be a little different. It'll be a little lighter. Sometimes I find clumps in my brown sugar, and so it is worth doing it. Otherwise, you just end up with some clumps in the actual cake itself, and that's fine too. We're going to eat it, and it's going to be tasty, right? So you see the differences in the consistency when you sift it. If you have a conventional sifter, that's great too. I wasn't pulling it out of the cabinet, which I had one of those. So into this bowl we have our flour, our brown sugar, our salt, some baking soda, and I think that was all. So to this, we're going to add 2 tablespoons of applesauce. Okay, I just use unsweetened applesauce because that's what I eat, and I usually get it in the little, containers. And just eat the rest, right? What are you gonna do with the rest of that? We only use 2 teaspoons. We're also going to use a 1/3 cup of olive oil. See how fast this is coming together? Our next liquid is buttermilk, okay? Now buttermilk really is pretty easy to make. I know when you have to go buy buttermilk, I used to sometimes struggle trying to find it, but buttermilk is just milk and an acid. So it's either milk and lemon juice or milk and apple cider vinegar, and that's what I use. So I have 1 cup of whatever plant-based milk you like to use, and 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. You let it sit and you'll see it curdling. Okay? Curdles pretty quickly. So I'm just going to pour that right in there. You can smell it. It does smell just like buttermilk. And then we're also going to put 1 tablespoon of vanilla. So then all of our liquid things are in here. Okay. All right. Now you could use an electric whisk or beater or whatnot. I didn't pull mine out. I just want to see how we're going to do with this one. This batter is not too thick. As you can see, it's not too bad, and I'll show you when it kind of comes together. But once we mix this up, which only took about 5 minutes, we're then going to put our chopped apples in. So I would probably say the chopped apple part is what takes the most time. Again, we're using Honeycrisp apples. It smells so good. This recipe also calls for nutmeg. I don't care for the flavor of nutmeg, so I didn't put it in there. And sometimes I don't even put the cinnamon in there because my mom is allergic to cinnamon and she likes this cake. So again, this is kind of customizable. The flavors are customizable, not the baking powder and those things that will rise this, but those things that you may or may not want to flavor this. Certainly you can do more or less of that. All right, this is pretty good. Okay, not bad. So let's work on these apples. All right, that's the part that you have to slow down a bit. I don't like the most, but it needs to be done. So we are going to, let me see. I think I've done this when I peeled them. I've done them not peeling it. When you peel them, you just have, sometimes you worry about them turning brown. You got to do it really quickly, or putting lemon juice in, on the apples so they don't turn brown. So just think about that. Okay. So we're just going to peel these apples. If you have a compost bin, just drop these in your compost, and it'll help make some great soil later. If you have an apple peeler, that would be better, even so you don't waste as much apple. I would encourage you, though, to chop these in uniform slices. You to just take the core out of the center and then begin to make some slices here so that they cook up evenly. If you have some big chunks and some small chunks, then it won't cook as well or as evenly. Okay. So a little paring knife does the job. Crisp are so delicious. Certainly in the fall you have even more choices of apples that you want to choose from, but I just love Honeycrisp. Alright, so 1 apple got us about 1 cup. So we're gonna, I'd probably say about 2.5 apples. The other one you could just eat for lunch. Depending on the apple, you know how some of them have a really soft skin. You probably don't need to peel it, actually. And I do actually eat Honeycrisp skins. Some skins I can't, like Red Delicious. I love Red Delicious apples, but the skins, cause some issues for me. But this one, I probably could have just used it. Nonetheless, it didn't take us that long to peel. All right. I just bought these apples. There's a little bit of browning in there. If you have a little bit of peel left on there, don't worry about it. It's going to bake up and be delicious. No one's going to notice that peel. If you have a core, though, that I would take out. All right, actually that is our 2.5. This apple was a little larger. I think I have little larger pieces. Okay, perfect. All right, so we chopped up about 2 large apples, and that will get us exactly what we want in our mix. So we're going to take our apples and just fold them into the batter, okay? Now you're going to see when this is all done, it looks so complicated. It looks beautiful, right? Actually, you got to make food cute, okay? You got to make it beautiful. But you see how fast this recipe came together. It did not take a lot of time at all. But it is so delicious. So delicious. Look at that. Nice and quick and delicious. All right. Okay, so we're going to preheat our oven to 325 degrees. We're going to pop this in a greased pan, and then we're going to make a little topping to go over top of that, okay? So while we do that, let me make that topping with you. I'm just going to use an olive oil spray, quicker. Okay. And then we're going to pour our batter right inside. No eggs, no butter, 10 minutes maybe. Smelling good, looking beautiful. Like I said, you always need a signature pie or signature cake that you take everywhere. I'm telling you, this might be yours. Okay. So, this does not look like a very thick cake. However, remember, we put a couple teaspoons of baking powder. Now, the baking powder, along with that acid, is going to be the rising agent for this. So, it's not going to be a huge cake, but it'll definitely rise a little bit above the edges here. Okay. All right. So we have our cake done. All right. So let's make a topping. So in this bowl, I have 1 tablespoon of dairy-free butter. I also have another teaspoon of cinnamon and 1/2 cup of sugar. So I'm just going to take the back of a fork and mash that down together, and then I'm going to put it right on top of my batter. Just sprinkle it on there and then pop the whole thing in the oven. Okay? So just grab a fork. Alright, so I'm just gonna mix it a little bit. As far as the butter, it should be a room temperature butter. It'll be a little easier to incorporate the cinnamon and the sugar. It'll go much quicker for you as well. Okay. Again, if you can't have sugar, just omit that. But it does add a wonderful flavor. It does add wonderful smells in your kitchen. Add some color too. And since we're just going to put this on the top, you're going to see that when it cooks down, the butter is going to sort of like make little divots in the top of your cake, and then it'll also melt down into the cake. So it won't necessarily be a crumb topping, but it'll be a flavorful topping. So when you cut it, you're going to see all that flavor in the top of your cake. If you love nuts, you can add some walnuts at this time, or whatever you'd like in this topping, because the topping really is already done. It comes out pretty quickly. Okay, I'm just gonna use my hands here and sprinkle that on the top. Like I said, the hardest part, or the most time-consuming part of this recipe, is the apples. Other than that, it really shouldn't take you long. I would say make this early, so you have guests or people coming over, they can walk in the house and smell this thing. Oh, it smells so good. Might as well just make 2 of them, because because they're gonna eat it all and you're gonna want some in your own house, right? For your own family. All right, so all done, okay? Absolutely beautiful. So again, we're gonna pop this in the preheated oven on 325. We're gonna let it cook, I think, for about 45 minutes. Check it for its doneness, and then we'll be back. So the cake is done, so I'm gonna take it out of the oven so I can show you what it looks like. Oh. Look at her. Like I said, the butter topping that you put on the top will sort of melt in little divots. So really it almost looks like, I don't know, an upscale Thomas English muffin, but it's in a cake and it is beautiful. You see chunks of apple, you see the cinnamon, you can smell the cinnamon. This should be your signature go-to cake. As I said, everyone needs a signature go-to cake, and this might be yours. All right, so I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you try it, and if you do, please put a comment down below. Let me know when you try this cake and if you tried anything differently, okay? Stay blessed, have a good day, bye now.